We're very excited to have Evan Kosmidas, Senior Sales Lead of CRM Dynamics, presenting for us today. He's going to take us through a deep dive into sales insights and how to continuously analyze and leverage the vast collection of customer interaction data already stored in your 365 databases. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and without any further ado, I would like to invite Evan to begin his presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. So, as was previously mentioned, I'm going to walk you through relationship selling primarily in Dynamics 365 using a tool called Sales Insights. So, Sales Insights is what I like to refer to as that Tier 2 or Tier 3 sales functionality. For a long time, I feel that sales reps were neglected in terms of AI functionality and a lot of the other cool tools that a lot of the other departments were getting, and sales was being neglected. So now Microsoft has kind of addressed that and given sales those tools that they need to make educated decisions, like where do I spend my time? That's one of the hardest things for me as a sales rep, is to figure out where I should be focusing my efforts and where, that's going to produce the most revenue or the most revenue towards my quota, essentially. So I'm pretty excited to show you some of this functionality because obviously it hits home for anybody that's in sales. It's pretty cool stuff. So without the right tools, sellers struggle to meet customer expectations. So 95% of sellers say that they have too many sales tools. This is one of the most common problems with sellers. They may have 3 tools that they're required to use, and they sit there and go, when the heck am I supposed to have time to sell? Only 18% of salespeople are considered trusted advisors. A lot of the times this has to do with the lack of data that sales reps have at their fingertips. So obviously knowledge is power, and the data that you have within your systems can help drive the sales rep's ability to position themselves as trusted advisors to that organization. And on average, sellers only spend 32% of their time selling, which is not very much at all. For all the sales managers out there, obviously data cleanliness and inputting that data into CRM is important, but you obviously want your sales reps to have more than 32% of their day to actually carry out selling activities or revenue driving activities, as I and my sales manager likes to call them. So B2B sales accelerate with trust and strong relationships. So trust is the #1 reason for closing deals. Obviously, people base things off of ROI and price as well, but they're much more likely to buy off somebody that they trust. What do buyers want from sellers? They want to understand, sellers to understand their business, demonstrate excellent communication skills, care about my post-sale experience, so not just make that sale and run, and then give me insights and perspective into what the tool will be able to provide for the organization. So what Microsoft has done has essentially tried to tackle a lot of these problems through the combination of 3 platforms. It's a lot more than that realistically, but at a high level, it's 3 platforms. The CRM system, which everyone's familiar with, managing your accounts, managing your contacts, managing your opportunities, pretty standard stuff. Now, social networks are something new that's come along in the past couple of years. Now, imagine LinkedIn. A lot of companies buy data, buy lists, which I must say in 2021 is not the most effective way of spending your money as a sales team. Why not use one of the most powerful networks in the world, LinkedIn, which is literally the greatest list that ever existed. It's ever updating, and people actually have a vested interest in keeping their profile updated, in which that information can be passed on to sellers who are looking to connect with the right people. And last but not least, productivity tools. Microsoft, along with owning LinkedIn, owns the #1 productivity tool in the world, which is obviously Office or Outlook specifically. So imagine being able to take data from Outlook, which is part of that Microsoft overall ecosystem, and tie that into the relationship health or the overall score that we're giving that customer, or measuring customer interest based on the activity through Outlook. So as you can see, these 3 work together to create a connected customer experiences, pulling data from all 3 sources, or leveraging data from all 3 sources, as well as some AI engines that Microsoft has built in order to spit out those actionable insights that lead to better customer experiences in the long run. So why Dynamics 365 for sales? Make smarter decisions backed by data, free up time for selling, and get up and running quickly. So 3 things that Microsoft tries to tackle that are day-to-day difficulties that a lot of sales teams struggle with. And you won't beat the competition if you rely on instinct. So once again, we want to rely on data, identify and connect with the right buyers, personalize engagement with those buyers. Obviously, there's a marketing tool that comes with Dynamics 365 as well, where you can further expand this ecosystem of customer data and behavioral data and things like that that gets pulled into the system and used. And then focus on top opportunities to increase win rates. So the next thing is your sellers are overwhelmed by tasks, information, and tools. Obviously, as you go through the sales cycle, there's probably 6 or 7 of you that are trying to position their product in there, the same way that 6 or 7 other platforms are positioning their products in any sales cycle that I'm in. That's just the nature of the business. So you want to leverage familiar tools and complete tasks from Outlook. You really want to keep your tasks, make sure you stay front and center and you're organized, leveraging all those tools across the ecosystem to communicate with your customers. You want to help guide the sellers with prospective actions and workflows. So essentially allow the system to drive what your next communication is and allow workflows to automate some of that communication. And for last but not least, empower a mobile workforce. As everybody knows, we are in 2021. People are on the road. They still need access to everything that they had within their office. And now we have this wonderful thing in front of us called a smartphone, which pretty much gives us access to anything we would need access to, including internet. So what Microsoft has done is created mobile applications that make it very easy to access the data from the connected ecosystem of products, whether it's Outlook, which I'm sure a lot of you are already using on your phone, or Dynamics 365, where you can go in before a meeting and update yourself on customer information before you actually walk through that door in order to have educated conversations with that customer based on LinkedIn information or any other information you have housed in your system. And last but not least, don't disrupt your business with a complex and costly implementation. As software has developed, implementing has become easier and easier. It's not to say that implementation is as easy as a click of a button. Anyone who tells you that is dreaming. However, Microsoft has made it as easy as humanly possible to implement this and get up and running as soon as possible with preset frameworks that you can build off of or build on top of. So where Microsoft still allows that flexibility to cover any process that you would want to cover throughout your business, but at the same time, they give you these templates that still make it easy to get up and running as quickly as possible. So quick and easy setup, it's easy to maintain, as I mentioned before. Seamless integrated tools that work the way your sellers do. I don't even call a lot of the things within the Microsoft ecosystem an integration because they all share one database. Integration is just a word that Microsoft uses for connection. Everything is leveraging that common database or that the dataverse, as Microsoft calls it on the back end, which limits the need for integration because we're all pulling from one unified source on the back end. As everyone knows, integrations are expensive. They're hard to maintain and upkeep. And a lot of the times as updates roll out within the native core of the platform, sometimes those integrations need tweaking over time. Microsoft tries to prevent that with the common data model or the one database ecosystem. And last but not least, flexible and extendable platform that is easy to adopt your solution. If you're using other Microsoft products, a lot of the way that this is laid out is very similar to other Microsoft products that you have, which make it very easy for users to find their way around the system relatively quickly and makes it very, very easy for users to use that as well. Awesome. So I am actually going to jump into the session now, the demonstration itself now, and I'm going to show you a little bit of what Dynamics 365 looks like. So I'm going to close that. So before I actually jump into Dynamics 365, I want to go through the 3 different hats I will be wearing throughout the course of this presentation. So the first hat will be somebody who's dealing with leads. So what we call it in our organization, a lead triager. As a lead comes in, this person is responsible for calling those leads, making that initial call, finding out the information that they need to find out, and actually passing that off to maybe a more senior sales rep that's going to run with that opportunity. So you'll notice the screen that I'm on right now is currently referred to as the Sales Accelerator. So this is something Microsoft recently released. And as you can see, I have a list on the left here. And on that list, I have grade A, grade B, and various other things like that, as well as a score here. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is I can actually have leads and opportunities that are entered into this list. And these are essentially my to-dos from all the leads that have come in. So I'm going to sort these and just have my leads that I'm dealing with for now, because obviously I'm triaging leads. So now this has been sorted by just leads. And I'm going to sort this again by score. And as you can see, it's already sorted by score. So what it's done is it's brought the highest scores on top, very easy to filter. And we have a score of 91 here for this lead. And as you can see, the next step in this process, and I'll go through how we set those steps, but the next step with this lead is to make that first customer call. This lead just came in. So I'm going to select this lead. The reason why this actually came to the top is because it had the highest score of 91. So based on our marketing campaigns, based on sales rep interaction, based on LinkedIn activity, based on a wide range of things, we know that Alex Baker is very interested in our product, as opposed to Glenda down here, who only has a score of 42, is most likely a tire kicker, hasn't really been interacting with any of our information, probably interacting with another company's information. So we're not going to spend too much time down here with Glenda, because we know Glenda is not going to be a revenue driving activity, if that makes sense. Or I shouldn't say not, there is a chance, but chances are that Alex Baker is a lot more likely based off of this score to convert than Glenda is. So as you can see, I've selected Alex Baker's record, and there's a couple things we can see here. The first things first is the up next tile. So this is based off of what Microsoft calls sales sequencing, and we're allowed to set steps on opportunities and leads that keep a uniform process that sales reps follow as they either triage a lead or manage an opportunity. So as you can see here, the steps are a first customer call, a follow-up email, a send call summary, follow-up email again from that, and then follow-up call to the customer if we do not hear back. And so this gets converted to an opportunity, obviously, as we go through the various steps in the lead process. So once this is qualified, it will obviously get turned into an opportunity. Now, I can either click here and make that call, and as you can see, it's talking, it's hard to. So as you can see, it would actually dial out automatically directly from in my CRM system. Microsoft has made it very easy to integrate phone systems in with Dynamics 365 through what they call the Open Channel Framework integration. So if your phone is tapping compliant, or an IP phone, there's a very good chance that we can actually get your reps calling directly from here. If you have an integration with Teams, I make a lot of my calls directly through Teams. If I was to click on here, it would call through here on here, but if I don't have this integrated, it would open up directly in Teams, kind of defeating the purpose for this. However, this still serves a purpose in places like call centers. Now, once this is done, I can mark this complete and move on to the next step. So that's a little bit on sales sequencing, how to determine when you're triaging leads, which leads are the best to reach out to, which ones are most likely to actually convert into opportunities and revenue. Because, as a sales rep, that's what I want to know. I want to be calling the people that are going to convert into revenue and know which ones are going to, which is the A grades, and not ignore, but kind of, these guys can go on the back burner. We'll see if their score increases. If it increases, I'll call them. If not, I'm going to deal on the things that are most important, and I'll get to these when I get to these type of thing. So. Perfect. Now, once that is done, I am going to put on my second hat. And my second hat is for a user named David, as you can see. And David is an actual sales rep. So David would be a sales lead who would be taking opportunities after somebody's triaged them. Now, as you can see, David has a list of opportunities he's working here. This is a lot of opportunities that David's working. So David obviously needs to be very, very efficient with his time and find out where he needs to focus his efforts if he's managing this many opportunities, right? So first things first, I want to point out a couple things. We have the name of the opportunity, we have the estimated revenue of the opportunity, but then we have something called the relationship health score. So this is really where I'm getting into my relationship selling side of things. This is this really cool, flashy stuff that not many people have seen before this was introduced. So as you can see, our relationship score is good, fair, poor, and we can see the trend. So is it steady? Is it improving? Is it even declining if we're neglecting an opportunity that we have in our pipe? Awesome. So I'm going to show you a chart that may be very useful for a sales manager, for example. So as you can see, as we go further over to the zeros here on the bottom, the closer we get to this line, the closer the deal is to closing. The closer we are to this one, the further we are away from closing. The higher up in the green, the better the relationship health. The lower down, obviously, we are, the worse the relationship health. So as a sales manager, I'm probably going to look at this and I'm going to go, oh man, what's going on with this opportunity? We're less than 10 days to closing on this opportunity, and the relationship health is poor. We're actually 6 days away, and the relationship health is poor. That's a problem. As a sales manager, I'm going to figure out what's going on there, because that might be lost revenue. I'm also going to look up here, though, and I'm going to see that we have 2 opportunities that actually have very, very good health that are 1 day away from closing. They're actually very close to closing, and they're quite sizable opportunities by the size of those circles. So I know that this is probably going to close. So if I'm a manager, I'm looking at this from a forecast perspective, and I'm saying, hey, I'm banking on these 2, but I'm not banking on the ones down here. And as a sales rep, I'm sitting here going, oh man, I'm going to probably close these. Let's get these done. But these ones, I really need to work on that relationship health over the next 6 days to try and get this to close in favor of us. So I'm going to dive into one of these good opportunities just to show you what it looks like. Obviously, we have general opportunity information. I'm going to kind of skim over that general X's and O's of sales stuff, like opportunity management and what's on the opportunity record. I'm going to go right over to the opportunity score. So what's actually driving this score? There's obviously an AI engine behind this as well as behavioral data on the customer's end. So I position this in 2 ways. I say you can measure the opportunity score by behavioral data. So what's coming in from Outlook, what's coming in from your marketing module, the same way you were in a lead, you're seeing how interested somebody is in the material that you're sending out, or how long it takes for the person to respond to your sales rep, or if they're even responding to your sales rep via Outlook all the time. But you can also look at trends and opportunities based on an AI engine. So what trends in previous opportunities resulted in closed opportunities, opportunities in the past, and which trends and opportunities resulted in lost opportunities. So as you can see, the estimated value went up to 48,000 here, and the purchase time frame got pushed up to this quarter. Well, that's a really, really good indicator based on our past trends and opportunities that the system's picked up on that this is going to close. However, we can see that maybe the estimated budget may drop below 40,000. That may be something that actually hurts our chances of closing this deal because the customer may not now have the budget. So, it's actually going to bring our score down. So there's an about section here that explains to you how all this works, but just at a very, very high level, it's based off of behavioral data as well as the AI engine that's pretty much calculating trends in the opportunities. I can also see some of the relationship analytics that go into measuring the relationship health here. So I talked about those AI trends. How do the hours spent compare? We spent 13.3 hours on this opportunity, whereas we're spending 14.20 hours on other opportunities. We also see things like email send receive ratios on this opportunity versus others that have closed as successful. Your response time, so we're responding to this customer in 10 hours, whereas on other successful ones, 13. That's a very good indication of how the rep is managing this opportunity. And there's a lot more data that you can dive into there. If anyone has any questions on this data later on, I can address those questions. However, I want to keep moving. Obviously, activity counts, time spent, response times, and things like that all drive this. And then you have an overall snapshot of the communications that have gone back and forth. So one other piece of information I wanted to point your eyes to on the actual opportunity itself is this little tidbit here. Kevin Martin has left the company. So as you can see, we're selling coffee machines to a cafeteria manager. In this case, we've been selling to Kevin Martin for a while. But the system picked up on the fact that Kevin Martin left the company, and how did it do that? So as you can see, we have an account that's associated to this, Tray Research. So we're dealing with the cafeteria manager at Tray Research, who was Kevin Martin. So I'm going to open up the account and just see a little bit more information on the account. And you'll recall at the beginning of this, I talked about how LinkedIn is the very best list in the world. You don't need to buy lists if you have LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is literally a forever updating list with more accurate data than you could purchase. That being said, Microsoft got a little bit greedy, and obviously they're building out functionality for their platform that nobody else has access to. For example, this functionality. So somebody leaves the company, it identifies and tells you the person's leaves the company. But many of you have probably noticed LinkedIn's asking you when you connect with someone internally with your company, is this person your boss? Does this person work for you? What relationship do you have with this person? It's driving this. So I can see that as the cafeteria manager, Alex Baker has actually replaced Kevin Martin. And on my opportunity, you can see that it had already been updated. So we know that Alex Baker is now the new contact that we need to go after, and we didn't need to make any calls to anyone else within the organization to figure that out. The CRM told us that and even indicated that that Kevin Martin was leaving the company. Very, very powerful stuff. I use this all the time to figure out who new contacts are, and I have project teams that come to me all the time and say, hey, Evan, somebody left. Do we have anybody who's a replacement yet? Because they want to start doing their legwork on finding out what type of person this is and how they can best tailor the project to meet this person's needs. You can show a LinkedIn profile here as well. It wasn't letting me sign in earlier just based off the fact this is a trial environment. They don't want everybody signing in. However, when I open up Tray Research, it will actually show the Tray Research profile here. You can also do that with contacts, individual contacts on contact records as well. So as you can see, we need to get in touch with Alex Baker. So I'm going to select Alex Baker. We're going to dive in and look at Alex Baker's profile for a little bit. So as you can see, I have Alex Baker. And I need to find a way to get in touch with Alex Baker, right? So as you can see, who knows whom? LinkedIn's going to tell me, who do I know that knows Alex Baker? As you can see, Alan knows Alex Baker. I can also visualize this in a different way. But Alan, I have a very, very good relationship health with Alan. Me and Alan are good buddies. Whereas me and Diane don't like each other too much. Diane doesn't follow us at all. She doesn't really care about us at all. So as you can see, that's a very poor relationship health. I'm probably going to ask Alan to introduce me to Alex Baker. So I can say, hey, Alan, please introduce me, blah, blah, blah. And then I can send that off. That will actually send off to Alex Baker, or sorry, to Alan, and we hope we get a response from Alan, obviously. Awesome. I hope that makes sense to everybody. We also have the relationship health analytics on individual contacts. It's not just for opportunities, it's for individual contacts as well. If you're specifically in contact management, a lot of the time account managers love this functionality on the contact. It also exists on the account. Once again, account managers usually love this information, whereas sales reps usually love the opportunity information. It's one collective group of information that has essentially been filtered based on how you're looking at that information. So the contact information is filtered based on the contact, whereas the account information is an accumulation of all the contacts, and the opportunity information or relationship health is based off of just the stakeholders within your organization and the identified contacts on the customer side that work on that opportunity, because you may have 3 opportunities for the same account. So they really allow you to narrow it down and specify where you want to see that relationship data and how you want to see it. Awesome. So that is pretty much it for the relationship health side of things. There's a lot more you can dive into here, but at a very high level, I think I've captured how sales reps can effectively use this to manage their time when it really comes to things like, who do I contact next, or where do I need to focus my efforts? It's a revolutionary tool in the sales game when it comes to that. So now, excuse me. Thank you. So now I'm going to jump over to my last hat. My last hat being Nancy. So Nancy is the boss, the big cheese. She is the sales manager who is on the hook for the sales reps hitting their quota, right? So there's one thing that Nancy's probably interested in. If there's any sales managers on this call, you want to see numbers, right? Your job depends on the numbers. Well, what are we going to hit? Now, I'm going to focus on forecasting as I jump into Nancy's hat with the last 5 minutes here. And I am going to go to forecasts. And Microsoft has essentially built out a very advanced forecasting tool that's, for how advanced it is, it's so simple to use. The system really drives this itself as long as you're putting in the correct data. The system can't read your mind and tell you how much revenue and opportunity is worth, but what the system can tell you is how much revenue based off of what sales reps have entered into the system is going to be driven pretty accurately in a pretty streamlined manner, where you really don't need to export reports. You can just look at this and it shows you everything you need to at the click of a button. As you can see, I just clicked the forecast here. That was it. So as you can see, I have a breakdown. I have a breakdown of the actual contacts. And as you can see, I mentioned before, Nancy's the big cheese, but Nancy also sells, as a lot of sales managers love. And I have yet to have a sales manager that has been able to remove him or herself from actually selling, which is funny. You can't take the sales out of the salesperson, right? So Nancy is actually her own sales rep here as well, with her own dedicated quota, as well as the manager responsible for the group, just to highlight that you can do that. And then you have all the people that work with Nancy, or for lack of a better term here, under Nancy, or part of Nancy's team. Each one of them has a goal or a quota that they have to hit. So Nancy's team goal is 6 million, where her personal goal is 1.2, and then you have everybody underneath. And then you have what's predicted. So obviously there's not much data driving this, and I apologize for this. I may actually be able to go into a different quarter and pull some actual data here. Oh, perfect, some data to show you. So as you can see in Q2, we have a prediction of what's going to be hit by the team. So the team's going to hit 1.8 predicted. What has already been won? So this is one based off of their quota, right? So how much of their quota have they actually achieved based off of what they've won so far? And remember, the sales reps can individually see this, and you can limit what information they see, obviously, but they can see their own information and how far they are. You'd be amazed at how many companies I was selling at before this one, where I didn't even have any way of measuring where I was at to the quota that I have for the year. I would go through the year blind, not knowing where I was at or where I need to be. And it's a surprising amount of companies and sales reps that are actually put into that position, and nobody really notices it until a sales rep calls it out and says, I have no idea where I'm at. So Microsoft's kind of enabled or brought out tools that help tackle that very simply without you having to spend a whole bunch of money to show sales reps where they're at. We have a best case scenario of what's been committed to the forecast by the sales rep. So best case is everything. Committed is just what do I think is actually going to close. So it's the reserved one that a lot of sales reps like to use, but the sales manager a lot of times wants to see this one too. We have lost revenue. We have pipeline. So what's currently in my pipe. We have a forecast. So what am I forecasted to be at? So I'm currently forecasted to be at 17%. I need to pick up my socks. And here's the gap to the current quota that we have. So it actually shows me what I need to make up as well as the pipeline coverage. So one thing to note, I want to see maybe what deals have been won. I can select this block. And then guess what? It's actually going to show me the opportunities that make up that individual data point. So instead of me having to go back and pretty much play, detective and figure out from all the reps, send me a report of what makes up this number. No, I'm going to actually click on that and I'm going to go through here and look at that, because sales managers, I love you guys. You guys keep me on track, but at the end of the day, I do not like reporting my numbers back to you when it's in the system. So Microsoft has made it very, very easy to visualize that realistically without having to come back and bug me about my numbers. I hope my manager's not on this call. He doesn't do that, but I love sales managers, not bashing them in any way, shape, or form. The next thing we go to is a best case scenario, right? So once again, you want to see what's involved in that best case scenario. You can see it at a click of a button. You don't need to go back to your reps to ask them about that information, and so on and so forth, right? It does that throughout everything here. If you have multiple teams, you can actually collapse these for an overall view. So I'm working with one company right now that has an East Coast, a West Coast, an Ontario specific, a Quebec specific, and a US team all separate. They can visualize all that in one dashboard, but if I'm Nancy, I only see my team. If I'm Nancy's boss, I see all the teams that I'm managing underneath Nancy. Some of the other things that you can do here is you can see trends in the data. So it's loading a trend chart. So you can see what's going on. So you have your prediction, which is the blue, versus your one, versus your forecast, versus your closed as one, versus your realized prediction based off of the data. Where do we think we're going to be at versus our actual quota, which is way up here. And last but not least, the flow of where the opportunities are coming from and where they're going to in different dollar figures as well as different quarters.